I'm Alyssa Connickson, editor of the UND Alumni Magazine, and this is Beyond the Pages, a new virtual conversation series with UND alumni who have been featured in past issues of the magazine. Today, we're going to bring you back to the spring of 2020 and some of the alumni who we featured in the spring 2020 edition of the magazine. You may remember that issue because it looked different than a lot of the others that we've had. It pictured an upside-down student in her cap and gown with the words, "When the world is upside down." This issue actually won a design award from the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education for so clearly encapsulating the uncertainty and upheaval that so many of us were feeling in those early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. In just a little bit, my colleague Milo Smith will bring you Mary Martin, who is the principal of Park River Elementary School here in North Dakota. She took over the reins as principal from her father, Richard, also a UND alum, who served in that position for 30 years prior. So their family just has a great tradition and legacy of educating our youth. And we all know the great impact that our teachers have had forever, but also especially over the course of this past year. One of our wonderful writers, Jen Lukens, will introduce us to Jade Rosenfeldt, who is the district judge for the 7th District in Minnesota. When we interviewed her last year, she had two of her closest friends with her. And we learned about how those two friends that she met here at UND really supported her and stood by her as she went through some really immense personal tragedy. But first, I'm going to introduce you to Kate Long, who is that student pictured upside down on the cover of the issue. So let's take a look beyond the pages of the UND Alumni Magazine. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
I am well too. So the last time we talked, as the cover of our magazine showed with you on the cover, the world at the time was so upside down, and your world was so upside down. There was so much uncertainty. You were scheduled to graduate that spring, and commencement had been canceled here on campus for the first time since the flood of '97. You and your family were both excited. Your grandma was going to fly up here from Texas and had to cancel her plans. You had been accepted into St. John's University School of Law in New York City, and New York at the time was essentially under lockdown and everything was so uncertain for you. So what happened? What happened in the year since then? Did you make it to New York?
I did. So I started school here back in August. We've been mostly able to be in person. It's been like a split format. So some classes in person, some online, but I did make it here.
That is wonderful. And so are you in your second semester of law school?
Yes.
Is that right? So I know that you had said when we talked last time that you kind of had a passion project, which was the mitigation of human trafficking, and you had an end goal of working for the International Justice Mission. Does that still hold true? And has your goal maybe evolved, or how is law school helping you achieve that?
It's definitely stayed similar. There have been like little things here and there. Like I'm definitely open to doing a lot of different things. I know I'd like to start off with some sort of criminal law and kind of using that to move towards anything else. I am really definitely interested in international human rights of pretty much any sorts. So being in school's kind of been able to help. Like right now, it's all still like the base classes that you need to know for the bar. Before next year, I'll be able to really like pick and choose classes that are more focused on what I'm interested in. But that's definitely like human rights and stuff like that for sure has still been like at the top of my interests.
That's great. Can you tell me a little bit about how your time at UND kind of helped further your interest and knowledge of those human rights issues?
Yeah, I think just taking like different, I mean, I was a political science major, and being able to take different classes that related to different like social political issues, and then being able to really like dive in on certain classes. Like I took I believe it was called International Human Rights, like literally in the name, with Dr. Sam, and that was a really really great class because it really like we got to like really get into a lot of different issues and kind of like the cultural implications and just like more than I was previously knew about.
That's wonderful. I feel like that's such a common thread of having a professor who you got close with at UND, or who made an impact on your life in that way, and really changed your thinking. Do you have any other stories of professors like that who maybe made an impact on you at UND?
Yeah, I mean, all of them to some extent for sure. I liked pretty much all my professors. So yeah, I definitely really enjoyed Dr. Boyd. She taught German, and that was just all her classes were super fun and interesting, and absolutely loved it. Fantastic. Um, I liked Professor Gender Isaac did like this board of like questions of the week sort of things that were always like really like interesting or just weird. Like sometimes it'd be something super simple like uh I can't even think like will we ever like achieve world peace or something like weird like that, or else like uh designer babies like what are the like ethical concerns. So like a lot of just really different topics, and students would like walk by and you'd see it like gradually getting added to, and some people took it really seriously. A lot of times it ended up in like weird tangents. It was a great time.
Which I feel like is such an important part of a university education, is really that expansion of thought and dialogue. That's awesome. So obviously now you're in New York City, a very different place from Grand Forks, North Dakota. Is there anything that you miss about UND or Grand Forks or being on campus?
I miss it being more quiet. I hopefully you might be able to hear the siren going off right
Yes.
there. um I miss walking around campus. Okay, it might get really loud in a sec, sorry. I miss walking around campus. It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I can still walk around here, but it's not the same. It's not like the huge sprawling campus with like the bridges and the uh, lawns and everything. Like I do miss being able to like walk around and run into other students and into other professors and not have to stay 6 feet apart. uh, so yeah, I really just kind of miss like being there and enjoying the beauty of it all. Also, red pepper.
Oh, red pepper, of course. I feel like that's everyone's favorite part of Grand Forks, right? um, so we've talked a little bit about your past, but how about the future? What are you most looking forward to in the year and the years ahead?
I'm really looking forward to hopefully going back to normal, however that looks like. Being able to attend all my classes in person and really be able to like pick those classes and get really into the topics I'm interested in, and then eventually, uh, hopefully, being able to practice law in some field, either in some sort of criminal work or human rights, something like that along the line.
Well, we wish you the very best, Kate, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thanks.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Lukens, and as Alyssa mentioned, I have with me Judge Jade Rosenfeldt. Welcome, Jade. I'm excited to hear your update from this past year.
Hi.
Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. Our interview last March was just a few months after you took on the 7th District Court Judge position for the state of Minnesota. So how have the challenges of this position taken on new form this past year?
Well, obviously, everyone has had the experience of COVID. So I think when we last spoke, probably had never even knew what coronavirus was or COVID-19. So shortly thereafter, actually, my family and I went on a week-long vacation, and that was in the end of March, and that is when the world started shutting down. So we were actually at the last Minnesota Twins game, spring opening game that was held last year, and then we were at the last day the beaches were open in Florida. And literally every time we went somewhere, then it'd be shut down the next day. So we came home, and obviously our kids were sent home from school, and school came to a conclusion, or homeschool began. So that all of a sudden just changed my job duties dramatically, because all of a sudden we weren't having court, or we were only conducting court on a really limited basis for a long period of time. And then eventually we've made the transition to Zoom court, and conducting all of our hearings via Zoom for a number of months now. So it's really changed everything. And so for really that reason, I was really only a district court judge in the traditional sense for about 6 months, and then everything changed.
And you mentioned your family. We had talked about your husband, Steve, who's a pharmacist in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and Weston and Henrik. What has this past year looked like for all of you, and how have other changes happened for you personally away from the bench?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we were on a family vacation, and then we came home, and all of a sudden, just like everyone else around the United States and the world, we were required to homeschool our children. And actually, my husband was laid off as a result of COVID. So we've sort of had to navigate that change. But now, reflecting back after a year of him being laid off, and then now working part-time, it, overall, I'm happy to report that I think our family has really grown quite a bit as a result of COVID. I think we've been able to realize that maybe we were pushing things too much before, with two people working in full-time professional jobs and managing the lives of two busy children. So it actually ended up being, it really has ended up being, and thankfully everyone has remained healthy, a really great time to reflect on what is really important in our family, and that time with our children is just time we'll never get back. And so it's been a really great opportunity for my husband to have more time at home with the children, and really has been able for us to say what is important and what isn't, and the things that aren't important we're going to just eliminate and focus on our priorities right now. So we've had a lot of family time, of course, and of course we've had to navigate educating the kids at home for chunks of time, but all in all, I can say that after a year, I feel like our family is really happy and healthy, and doing really well. We're just about to leave for our family vacation this year on Saturday. And so hopefully this will continue.
That's good to hear. A heart-wrenching part of your story, Jade, was the passing of your 3-month-old daughter, Adeline, back in 2017. And this past November marked the 3-year mark of Adeline's death. How are you doing? How are you coping? And in what ways have you commemorated her life this past year?
Yeah. So, I mean, certain days are more difficult than others. Certain places that we go are more difficult than others. Sometimes just being around little girls, I was just in the Target Fargo Target getting some birthday presents for my nieces, and in the little girls' clothing section. And the poor people that were in that section probably were wondering what was wrong with me as I was crying and trying to pick out little gifts for my nieces, and just maybe feeling a little sorry for myself that I wasn't picking out clothes for my own daughter. But just still getting through every day the best that we can. In August would have been her birthday, and so we've really tried to take away the focus in November and really put the focus in August, because my children know that would be her birthday, and that seems to be a really good way to celebrate and make it a happy occasion. So this summer, we celebrated her birthday at our lake cabin. We were with all of our family and all the nieces and nephews. So all the cousins were together, and we did unicorn cupcakes, and all the kids were full of frosting, pink frosting, and different types of decorations. Then we got pink balloons to send up into the sky. And so all the kids were able to do that. And it was really special, because I felt like the whole family was celebrating her birthday, and that we always celebrate everyone's birthday, and we weren't leaving her out of that tradition of celebrating the children's birthdays. So that was a really nice way to remember her. And we have to come up with another plan for her birthday this year. But going to keep doing that.
That is so special. What a good thing, celebrating on her birthday, a celebration of her life.
Yeah.
Another really significant part of the story was talking about your friendship with fellow alumna Lori Conroy and Aubrey Zucker, who graduated from UND Law School with you and have been with you through tragedy and triumph. So we all know friendship has changed quite a bit through COVID. How has yours looked with those two ladies, and perhaps strengthened this past year?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's strange, because Aubrey and Lori and I have never really, we always saw each other so much that we didn't necessarily have to communicate. We didn't have to have regular phone calls or Zooms or anything like that, because we just saw each other weekly, and sometimes daily. But we have had to shift a little bit, right? I mean, different periods of time, someone is down with either COVID, or someone in their families under a quarantine. And then obviously just being careful during periods of time. So we haven't been able to see each other as much as I know all of us would like. We certainly are using more phone and texting and that kind of technology. We are trying to have regular lunches and just seeing each other now that things are kind of opening up again. And then I know that we haven't been running as regularly as we would like. Winter's always tough, and I feel like the older we get, I'll only speak for myself, I just become a little bit more inside runner than an outside runner during the winter months. But I think hopefully now that things are warming up and people are getting vaccinated, and so hopefully we'll be able to see each other more and more. We did our annual Christmas baking this year, which was a really great time to spend with each other. And I feel like every time we're with each other, we walk away just refreshed, just having that time to spend together. And I always feel really refreshed and inspired. I just had lunch with them last week or the week before, and I'm always amazed at the things that they're doing, and my inability to keep up with all of their goals and things they're accomplishing.
Yeah, it was so wonderful seeing you three interact together as well. And for our audience who might not have seen your video that accompanied the written piece, I encourage you all to do that. So you can check that out at undalumni.org/alumni mag, or on our YouTube channel as well. Beautiful friendship. It's obvious to see with you three ladies. So that's good to hear. And you mentioned running. So last year at this time, You were training for the marathon, which was unfortunately canceled due to COVID, and you were planning on running for Adeline to raise money for children's charities. Do you plan on running in the Fargo Marathon, which is set for September, it looks like?
Yes. So super happy that they've rescheduled it for September. And I need to kind of figure out what that looks like in terms of the Run for Adeline. I was just kind of connecting with some friends and making sure that people are willing to do it. I mean, even if it's just me that does it, it's fine. But so we're going to try to do another Run for Adeline, which we've done at all of the Fargo marathons since her passing, where we all wear our pink shirts that say Run for Adeline. And we try to raise using the money for the t-shirts basically to give to different charities in Fargo Moorhead. So we kind of got to figure out what that looks like this year. I've been working pretty closely with a mental health group in our hockey association that's just working on bringing more mental health awareness to athletes and young individuals in our community, and just trying to get the tools out there. And especially with COVID, I think mental health is really an important topic. I know we're seeing increases in suicides and obviously in other mental health, depression, anxiety. And so I think it's really important that we're trying to reach out to the young people and make sure that we're talking about mental health. We're trying to eliminate that stigma of mental health, talking about tools that you can have, talking about how to talk to your friends about mental health, and just trying to open up those conversations. So I think it'd be really great this year to kind of combine that conversation with the Run for Adeline. Obviously, both my husband and I have had to have our own mental health triumphs and struggles since her passing. So I think it'd be really nice to combine those two things. So we're just kind of working out the details and trying to figure out what that might look like.
That is such a good focus. I'm excited to hear that, Jade. And kind of along that line too, professionally, support, that's where a lot of support can come into play. And in your article, we ended with a quote of you talking about women supporting women and women being in your corner, and how you've seen that from your friendships. Could you give some advice to Kate Long, who we just heard from, who's now a law student, that you might have from your experience or professional life?
Yeah, I mean, my advice, and I just recently also did a couple Zoom sessions with some current UND law students, and just trying to kind of give them some advice for law school and their futures. And so my advice always is, take advantage of those opportunities that are there. Always be supportive of other women and other individuals that you're working with. Take care of yourself. I think it's so important to take care of your physical and your mental health. It's really important that you figure out what you need to do to keep yourself healthy. Don't take on too much either, right? I mean, sometimes we hear, just say yes, just say yes. And if there's anything that we've taken away from this period of COVID, is that I'm not always going to say yes to everything, because, I have to kind of figure out the priorities, but certainly let those doors open, take advantage, and be supportive. And of course, always just continue the good work. And I think that as long as you're motivated by that desire to give back to the community, by giving service, promoting others, you're always going to have success.
Well said, Jade, and we wish her the best of luck, Kate, and you as well, Jade, in all that you're doing. It's a lot. And we thank you for taking the time to update us on your life since last March. And thank you all to our audience for viewing today. And please stay with us for more conversations beyond the pages.
One of of the things I've enjoyed about writing to the UND Alumni Magazine over the past decade is getting to share stories from alumni that are fun, inspiring, emotional, and sometimes all three at once. And the story Like Father, Like Daughter from the spring 2020 issue was one of those that did have all three of those elements. Though I did not write the story, my colleague Leanna Irie did. I'm happy to be following up today with Mary Martin, principal at Park River Elementary School. And Mary, thanks for joining me today. We're really excited to catch up with you.
Yeah, thank you.
So for people who don't remember this story, let's give them a little background. Your father, Richard Holland, was the principal at Park River Elementary for 30 years, and now you are the principal as well. I think from the story we got the sense you always knew you'd be in education, but how did you end up as a principal just like your dad and in the same office basically?
Well, it's not really the same office
Right.
at all, but I really didn't have that on my mind. I grew up thinking I would be a teacher, and in my undergrad, that was my goal as well. At the end of undergrad, we were asked where we saw ourselves in 5 years or where else we would see, and so trying to predict, I thought if I was to go on to anything, perhaps administration would be something as a goal, but as I started teaching, I enjoyed that so much and really fell in love with that, so I didn't pursue that right away. I taught for 15 years and really found a passion for that. I got to work out of state, and then I came back to the same school district where I grew up. And after my dad was done being principal, Brenda Nielsen was the principal, and I got to teach under her guidance and really appreciated the mentorship that she provided. And realizing that she would be retiring, I kind of reflected on my future goals and decided I wanted to pursue being a principal as well.
So I assume you consulted with your father. Was he excited to hear that you were interested in taking a chance at that job?
Yeah, he was excited and proud. Really just, inspiring to be able to even promote a larger impact to a broader range of people.
So what kind of, I assume he stays interested in your career, and does he offer you advice still, or has he kind of let you forge your own path?
Well, there's always that combination of both. He's 84 years old and he's got a wealth of experience. He started out teaching in country schools, and for the many years he taught, went through several different changes to where technology was a big piece, in the end. But a lot of it is that lifelong love of learning is really what he instilled in me, and being reflective about things and that genuine care and passion for children and education.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things from the story was him talking about how he enjoyed, greeting students each day and being around them. And you've kind of touched on this, but are those the kinds of things you learned from your father, that there's an administrative side, but there's also, you got to remember that there's kids at the other end of those decisions that you're making it?
Yeah, that was kind of one of my biggest worries of leaving the classroom, that I would miss the time with kids. But I've really found that I have plenty of time with kids, and I get to be with all of them and involved in their classrooms and knowing what's going on throughout the whole school and working towards making positive impacts for everyone. And, I do recess duty every day. I'm out for an hour and a half, and I'm with all of the different groups of kids. And some people might not find that the most exciting, especially during a cold winter day. But it's really a fun time to get to know the kids on another level and connect.
Well, since that issue came out in the spring of 2020, this education system has certainly been rocked by the pandemic, by coronavirus. What have been the unique challenges within a small town in North Dakota in dealing with COVID?
Some of our challenges might have also been blessings. Throughout the process, when staff have to be quarantined, then the challenge is finding someone to fill in and having subs available. But a lot of our teachers that have retired from school return to subs, so they have stepped up and continue to sub even in challenging situations that COVID has presented. But also we've had many community members step up and get their sub license so they could help out during those times as well. We've also had a lot of different support from our community, just ensuring that our distant learners have valuable experiences. We had already been one-to-one with devices already, so that wasn't really much of an issue, but making sure that our families had internet service was another big piece of that, and Polar Communications cooperated with us to help ensure everybody could be connected and still maintain their educational experience. And then the other big part is, of course, combating fatigue. And there's a lot to go through this, so everybody has been finding different ways to support one another through that.
So how, in your mind, did students adjust? Are they getting back to normal now? How did they do kind of during the heart of this issue? And do you have any worries going forward about the experience that your students have had? Do you think it hinders them as the next school year, or this school year ends and the next one begins in the fall?
Yeah, well, as educators, we always worry about students and how their success is going to develop. I think that they will build some resiliency through all of this, and I think we'll see some positive things come from this. Kids can really adjust, and we're going to continue to monitor and adjust our instructions so that we can meet their needs. We've been on site all school year, so if families wanted to distance learn, they could, but we've always had students on site this school year, so that's been a great benefit to be able to meet student needs in person. But we've also noticed all the new hygiene and health practices have really improved the quality of health overall. We've seen less cold and flu, and kids are staying home if they really are sick, so it's not being spread. So all of those little things have made nice positive impacts.
Well, that was one thing I wanted to ask, and that along those lines is there any positive experiences come out of it? There, right there is one of them. Any others that you see that trying to find a silver lining in a cloudy day?
Yeah, well, we've had some unique connections happening. I know our school has worked with our nursing home in town, the Good Samaritan Center, and generally it has been one grade level kind of connecting with them and doing activities, but we haven't been able to go there and visit this year. So it's really led to more of a school-wide approach of connecting in different ways. Over Christmas time, they got and decorated small Christmas trees to be delivered to them in their rooms. Some have coordinated virtual meetings. So now that teachers and students and people are familiar with Google Meet and the virtual meeting format, others are more comfortable. So other classrooms have been able to adopt a grandpa and play math games together. And so new relationships have developed that way as well. So I think, things are different, and kind of learning to adjust to change. We're going to be faced through all of our lives of how to adjust to change. So adults kind of leading the way for kids and showing that change can be okay will be a positive through all of that.
Well, and as a principal, you're responsible for the children, but you're also responsible for supporting the teachers. Has that been? I can imagine there was a lot of challenges there, especially early on, not knowing exactly how things were going to proceed last spring, especially.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of hurdles to try to work through, and pulling committees together to gather input and then make decisions from that has been a big part of it, so that it's not just a decision from one side. We realized the need for additional professional development time or time to prepare for our distant learners. And we usually have early out days scheduled for professional development in our year. And one of the things we did was extend that time on some of those days, those early out days, to make them full days, to provide extra time for teachers to make plans and prepare for all the added things that they're working on. And then we normally have PLC groups where teachers meet to work together to go through what's working well, what's challenging, and what are some possible solutions. And some of those have focused on some of these needs, and I know that has helped as well.
Well, maybe it's not fair to say getting back to normal, because you guys have had in-class instruction in recent months and throughout this year, as you said. But is there kind of a future where it's even more normal, and what excites you about maybe getting back to that normal again?
Well, I think, students are getting we wear masks all day, and students are getting maybe tired of doing that and wishing they didn't have to anymore, and minding to stay distant and things like that. So once we're able to have less of a focus on following precautions to stay healthy, then there'll be more motivation for the learning and the excitement of all the curiosity that all the activities can provide.
One of the things about the story that I really enjoyed was the fact that the discussion about you just come from a family of educators. I think your father said when you have family reunions, there's just like a teachers convention. That must be a special bond that you all have, not only as family, but as teachers and educators as well.
Yeah, I think, and in my generation and my generation of siblings, I have some cousins that are teachers. My one brother is a teacher, and then of course both my mom and dad were. My mom has passed, but so education has always been a focus in our family and kids. I grew up, I have many nieces and nephews, and we grew up just spending a lot of time together. So just that focus on child development and making one another feel more successful, and kind of that idea even of how could things always be better. I think I grew up with that as well, just thinking of my own school projects of I'd be really proud of something, but then the reflective process would be part, and well, could you have tried this? And that was just instilled in me, and that's a big part of our school's vision of being better today than we were yesterday, and just that constant improvement. So yeah.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Mary Martin, for being with us today and sharing an update on your situation. Thanks thanks for choosing a career in education, and let your dad know that everybody got a kick out of the story and enjoyed meeting him and you through the pages of the magazine. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
To read the current issue or look back on past issues of the UND Alumni Magazine, visit undalumni.org/magazine. If you're not receiving the magazine in the mail but would like to, you can update your contact information there too. The producer of Beyond the Pages is event guru, seriously, she's the best in the business, Brooke Conlon. Interviews were conducted by communications whiz and overall lovely human being, Jen Lukens. The man who does it all, including putting this production together, thank you, Milo Smith, and me, Alyssa Connickson. Join us next time for more conversations beyond the pages.